welcome back to the Superhero Rewind Commentary Project. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me tonight, as always, is, well, he didn't make it last time, but as usual, it's Austin, the Day Ghost. Thanks for being my sidekick once again, Austin. Appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, I missed one time, and now I'm bumped out from being as per usual.
Yeah, I've already had a second Robin.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was like spoiler, you know? Kareem is basically my
Todd.
spoiler. Like, he was there for just a minute.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good then. He's not Jason Todd.
No, he's not Jason Todd. I actually just saw him earlier this evening. I can confirm he is not Jason Todd.
Although, was he Red Hood?
No. He was not wearing a red hood.
Okay.
And I didn't see any marks where, like, he got beat by a crowbar or anything like that. I'm assuming that didn't happen.
That's good. That's good.
Tonight, we're doing a commentary on the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, which was picked by poll on Patreon. Austin and I each picked a couple of movies, and this was one of Austin's picks. And Austin's picks usually win.
That's not true. My picks, never win.
Do they not?
No.
Oh, okay, well, that's not my recollection of shows we've done of that. We actually haven't done one of those in a long time, though, so...
Yeah, no, that is true. This is the first poll we've done in a while.
My recollection could be faulty. Anyway, this is a movie that... I guess I shouldn't be surprised at this one, because we have a Ninja Turtles movie in the theater right now, and it's kind of on everybody's minds. I even got a Ninja Turtles tattoo this week. It's been a big Turtles week for me, and honestly, I was kind of in the mood to watch this anyway, so I was really excited that won. I watched it with my son Mikey, and he loves this movie. We had a lot of fun watching it together, and Austin, why was this one of the movies that you selected? Like, were you, first of all, were you just in the mood for it also because there's turtle stuff going on? And because I know you're not a big Turtles guy, so like the other question is, how well do you even know this movie? Is this like a big movie for you?
So I watched this a lot as a kid. This was one of those VHS tapes I watched over and over. And then I feel like I hadn't seen it in like a good 8 years. And then I think we did like a Discord watch party. Oh, we did, because you guys wanted to do 1, 2, and TMNT, and I wormed my way into making all of us watch 3 instead.
Yeah, which nobody paid any attention to.
No.
And we just talked over it. Yeah, that was a long time ago, but yeah, Dan was there.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like the first time I'd seen it in like near a decade, I think, and then I haven't seen it since. And when I was on vacation last week, I wanted to show it to my youngest brother because he's never seen it before, and then it didn't happen. So it was just kind of already on my mind.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it will be a lot of fun to watch and discuss. Again, I have said my piece on this. This is one of those movies with the commentary project, because we're doing every superhero movie. We're going back to everything. Whether I've done no commentaries or 15, we're doing them anyway. And this is one that, of course, I've talked a lot about. There are not one but 2 scripted rewinds already on this movie. And the second one, I think, was 45 or 50 minutes long. I talked a lot about the family theme with this. I had new complaints about Casey Jones, stuff I hadn't really talked about before. So some of that will come up, of course, but if this isn't as much of a full-blown complete analysis as you usually get from me, it's because I've talked about this before and I'm trying not to repeat myself too terribly much. And we'll probably talk more background than we ever have with this movie, because I know Austin did a little bit of research this week, and I've looked more into this movie than I have in a while. So,
yeah, and not as much as you probably are thinking, because I ended up not watching all of the commentary because I was bored.
You just couldn't listen to it?
I was like, this is boring. I'm at work, and I'm like trying to get through the day.
Well, we'll talk about Steve Barron's commentary a little bit later, because I'll be surprised if very many people who look at this video or are watching live right now have seen that, because it is not on an American release. It's on only a German release, and it's very, very odd the way that happened. So I'll talk about that. That'll be some new stuff to talk about. I've learned a little bit more about deleted scenes and scenes that were supposed to happen that I didn't know about before. So, you know, I don't want to just make this a like retrospective behind the scenes show, of course. I want to focus more on story like we always do with Rewind things. But we'll talk more about that than we usually do. And, or than I should say, than I have with this movie. So, 1990, I have already tackled Batman 89 on this project, and this is the very next year, and this is the other movie, arguably, that most propelled us into comic book movies and movies that were very much inspired by comics through the 90s. That's kind of the 1-2 punch. This movie arguably is influenced to some degree by that film because it comes out it is in the theater as they start shooting it, but it was certainly not just a response to that movie.
No, I'd say it's more so that they're both very clearly, this more so, looking at RoboCop.
Yeah.
And obviously Frank Miller.
Right. And Batman's looking more at Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For at least visual aesthetic and stuff. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the movie. We can talk about all those things as we go. Get it at timestamp 0 if you want to watch it with us, and we encourage you to do that. But we'll make this as much of a listenable podcast without watching along. And this is on Max right now. It was on Netflix up until just recently, but now it's just on Max. And of course, if you have a disc, get it past all the menus and everything. I have my disc here, but I'm actually going to watch it on Max because my disc looks very scratched, and I don't know if I can trust that tonight, but I still have my old copy. I've not updated this because we've never had a release with cool features and stuff here in the States.
Do you have the 3-movie pack, or is it just solo?
No, I still have each of the original DVD releases for...
Oh, okay.
For these movies.
I always think of that weird, like pineapple one that they did for each movie.
Oh yeah,
like pack one. It's so weird. I guess it's supposed to be a shell, but it just looks like they live in SpongeBob's house. It's really weird.
Yeah, there's something else that's in a shell that looks better than that. I don't know if it's the 2014 movie or I forget. But there's a lot of really gimmicky packages for Ninja Turtles movies. I have not one but 2 Turtle vans for different releases because I have the 87 cartoon show, the whole 10 seasons in the Turtle van. It's one of the coolest releases I have. And then there's a tin that was a special edition for the 2014 show that came out, and it's not as cool looking. For obvious reasons, partly because it's a tin, but I
almost bought that 80s one, just out of sheer coolness of that design.
The oddest one I've seen recently, we'll get into this. The oddest one I've seen recently is a 5-pack that includes the first 3, and then TMNT, and then Batman versus Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah, you've shown me that before. There is one weirder release, though.
What's that?
Than that one. There's one that's the first 3, Out of the Shadows, and Black Adam, for some reason.
No, there's not. You're just making that up. He's making fun of the fact that they keep releasing Black Adam with other DC movies, trying to make it look more relevant. Or, I want to say to just get rid of copies, but I don't know that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they just keep making 2-packs with Black Adam. It's really funny.
Because they're probably on one disc, right?
But yeah, it's probably like the old school DVD ones, where you flip it and it's like Black Adam's on the other.
But if it's on a Blu-ray, you could fit more things on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, we started late tonight. We should probably start watching this movie. Luckily, it's only like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
All right, here we go, folks. Timestamp 0. Get ready to press play when I say now, and I'm just about to do that. Everybody, please press play right now. And here comes that classic New Line logo that on video, I don't know if it does it here, but you always had to watch it twice. I brought this up a lot, but they'll do the New Line logo, and then they'll do it again. It'll be like a kind of a slower moving at the start.
I didn't get that, so...
Yeah, it didn't happen here either.
Okay.
Maybe that was just on the VHS, I don't know. There's other New Line movies that had that, too.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I think New Line was their most successful franchise or movies were was it Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yep. Yeah, this is getting near the end of that. But they attempted it with these, because isn't 2 a year later?
A year later.
And that was the big thing with Nightmare, was just pump them out, pump them out. So they attempted it with this, but it did not work.
So, real quick, let me mention Steve Barron's commentary, because it's very odd. Steve Barron is the director for this. A lot of people don't realize that this was directed by a British guy, and once you know that, there's a couple of like curious line choices and things where you go, oh yeah, it oddly sounds like it was made by British people, because I think the writer may have also been British. I can't remember. I know he's working with at least one other person behind the scenes that is from Britain. But anyway, there was a German release of the movie that had special features. It had a commentary, and it had a featurette, making of, and stuff that we never got here, and people have been waiting forever to get. So when you see footage from deleted scenes and things, a lot of that came from that release, and people have got their hands on it and put it up on YouTube. And when you listen to the commentary, Steve Barron knows that it's going to Germany, and he opens it saying, I don't speak any German, so this commentary is going to be in English. And
yeah, it's very strange.
And the audio behind his track, of course, because it's ripped from a DVD where you would still be hearing the audio, is the German track. And so I learned some things just listening to that about how this was released, at least in Germany, if not probably other places, at least in Europe. Particularly, it's kind of fun to hear what the German sounded like, but the voiceover artist. But did you listen far enough, Austin, to hear just how much of the fight scenes had extra goofy sound effects?
No.
It's embarrassing. Like, this means that, and I imagine it was Europe at large, particularly because of the whole, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles thing, and there was a lot of censorship with Turtles over there. They didn't like the word ninja, famously. And when you listen to the German version of this movie, there's slide whistles everywhere, and there's extra goofy music, and they put the sound effects in the Shredder fight at the end.
I hope that it does a slide whistle when he falls off the building.
It's absolutely shocking.
That's amazing. So one of the first things right off the bat with this that I miss in just superhero films now is all the just cuts to random New Yorkers having little moments. The stuff that was really cool in the Raimi Spider-Man movies that we've never done again.
Yeah, where you get the sense that the world is populated by other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they all have a little character to them.
Yeah, well, my favorite is the cops in the car when Raphael is running after Casey Jones.
Oh, not cops, the cabbie.
It looks like a... Oh, yeah, I guess it's not cops. It looked like a big turtle in a trench coat.
By the way, you're going to LaGuardia, right?
And one of the guys in that car, according to Barron, is the guy in the Raphael suit. And apparently...
Oh, yes, I did know that.
Apparently he tried to get... Which is really cool of him. Apparently he tried to get a FaceTime moment for a... to be like a random extra that had a line for every turtle in the suits, like out of costume. And it's like Michelangelo delivers pizza to himself, which I didn't realize that's who that was.
Yeah, I knew that.
Or if I did, I'd forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which carries over at least a little bit into the second one as well. And that's always pretty cool.
Well, yeah, because of course Kino is
exactly.
Donatello's
Donatello,
suit performer, but he doesn't actually do that in that movie.
Oh, okay. So I might be wrong about
now,
that. Now,
Barron, unfortunately, does not tell us where the other cameos are. He only mentions those two, so I have no idea. If the other ones are in there, I don't know where they are.
Those are the only two I know offhand.
This movie is the reason I cannot stop saying Bossa Nova. Say it all the time.
This is just the greatest introduction to the turtles out of any of the movies. I love the pause right before they're like, because you're watching the shadow going by, and I love the pause where it goes to the logo before they come out.
And you've been
Like,
waiting this whole time
yeah,
to see them,
exactly.
and they're forcing us to wait and wait and wait, and finally you get the reveal. And it wouldn't be so exciting if they didn't look as good and as believable as they do.
Mhm. Although the logo is really weird.
Yes, I've always thought that was a mistake.
It's both a mistake because it's weird that they use the cartoon logo, and it's weird because it has the registered trademark. Pardon?
That's a thing we would occasionally do in 80s and 90s movies. Absolutely. I
It's strange.
So a lot of the best things in this movie are kind of happy accidents, and this will probably be a theme through our commentary. Art through adversity, minimalism leading to really creative choices. This is another thing that I didn't realize until I listened to Baron's commentary, and this is also in the Toy Galaxy video about this movie, which had some information that I didn't know, and that's a good background video about this if you ever want to go take a look at that. But it's mentioned in both of those places that there are a few shots that they just could not afford to make or finish that were supposed to continue to set up the turtles before we get their first big appearance. So you would still have that reveal, but you would have seen more of them because they were supposed to be like jumping over roofs, and their shells were supposed to pop out of the water, kind of like they do in A Moment in 2. And
Okay.
none of that ends up happening. April, like, running from thugs was supposed to be intercut with all of that. Or maybe that was supposed to be intercut with her news broadcast. I can't remember, but it was supposed to be an intercut thing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that didn't happen. It works a lot better with what's here.
I think so too. But they were trying to be really cinematic about it.
Mm-hmm. No, and that makes sense. Like, I can understand when you're writing this movie why you would do that. But just visually, this works better.
Yeah, it is a film that, in the minds of the creators, was a bigger spectacle. And a lot of what I like about it is that it is not a big spectacle.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's one of the things that I like about it too. Especially, you have like a climax that's just four people fighting one guy on a roof. Like, I like how small it is in places.
And I like that it's as small and intimate as some of the early comics, and then they avoid the places where those get real big. Partly because they don't have the money, and partly because they're more interested in the street level stuff. So lately,
Well, this is still an indie movie because it's not anymore, but it was the most or the highest grossing indie film of all time at that point.
It was, and the first thing that beat it was Blair Witch.
That makes sense. I didn't know that specifically, but that makes sense.
I also got that from Steve Barron's commentary. It was a very useful thing to listen to. Although there are some questions I still have about the making of this movie that he does not clear up. But I'll get to some of that later, maybe. I always remember this scene wrong. I always remember it being Donatello who is talking to Michelangelo right now, and not Leonardo.
No, it is Donatello.
Why does the headband look so blue?
It doesn't. It's purple.
It's not.
Yes,
It must
it
be
is.
this transfer. Because if you were looking what I'm looking at right now,
okay.
it looks blue.
Oh, okay.
And that threw me off, and I went, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's... But it sounds like Donatello's voice.
No, that is Corey Feldman, yeah.
Okay, I thought so, but I didn't trust it, because I'm telling you, something about this transfer on Max, it looks blue. Tell me in the comments right now if you're watching live, and by the way, we will try to interact some with live commenters as we go. Thanks a lot for being here if you're watching live, and thanks for watching after the fact as well. That is Michelangelo getting pizza from Michelangelo.
Well, that moment in general, I think, is just like a really sweet, small moment.
But Robert, are you watching it on Max? I'm telling you, it's blue on Max. Anyway. Maybe it's just this projector. I don't know.
It's probably that. That
Oh, and
moment.
John says, sorry, John says it's purple. He's watching on Max. Okay, I blame this projector then, because I swear to God, see, I mean, I'm not colorblind. It looks purple in every other scene.
Yeah. No, it was purple.
Is there any part of you? Can we talk about the '87 choices for just a minute?
First, I just want to
Yeah.
throw out that scene that just passed before we get too far away from it. That is just like a really sweet moment with Michelangelo, where you have the whole thing with Splinter talking about his death, and then he doesn't want to address it when Donatello brings it up.
Yeah.
Like really quickly, like I'm glad we're already doing little moments with them like that.
No, it's great, and
That's not just like shtick, because I think a lot of the shtick stuff hasn't aged super well in this movie.
No, I agree, and I'll use that to segue because that's one of the unfortunate takeaways to this movie from '87 is if somehow this movie gets made and you don't have that cartoon show, the Turtles just aren't as one-linery and jokey, and like they would still be funny in places, I'm sure, but it wouldn't be the kind of least common denominator, really easy goofy banter. And some of it's funny and some of it really works, don't get me wrong, but there are places where they're just kind of talking.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think the worst one, and John and I were arguing about this before we got on the show, which is, I think the ending's really flat with Splinter, where he gets to do the shtick thing at the end.
I made it funny.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I don't love that.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it too is like I think Splinter's the best part of this movie. And like the stuff that works the best is the more serious stuff, and it's all with him. Not to say that like everything around him doesn't work, because it does, but he's the thing that I think works the best. And then at the end, it's just kind of, oh, and here's like the shticky turtle stuff that isn't great with him. So it's kind of awkward.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a case for it. That he's kind of lightening up, and their family gets to stay together, and so he's kind of backing off and saying like, I'm gonna throw the turtles a bone and talk like them for a second, because I appreciate them, they saved me and everything, or at least they helped. Casey Jones really saved Splinter, let's be honest, but yeah. But I'm with you. I don't love it. With the scene you were talking about in the sewer, that's real heartfelt. That kind of sets up. It's really good foreshadowing thematically that the movie is going to be fathers and sons, and good parenting versus non-parenting, and coming of age. How do you live in the world without a mentor who's taught you real values and everything, and then you get to the end of the movie and he survives and they're not going to be without him. And I've made this point a million times, but I do think just as a piece, if you never had any more, Splinter really should die by the end of this movie.
It's hard for me to say because I can see it both ways.
Or if he doesn't, you have to rewrite it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where it's going.
Mm-hmm. For the turtle story, I think he does, but I think for the actual like Shredder story, I prefer the way it goes. But for the turtles as characters, that's obviously the way it should have gone.
Yeah, well, and that's when you have two aspects of a movie kind of fighting each other. You have the commercial versus the storytelling, right? Because the story really wants them to learn how to live without him, but do you really want that Shredder fight to happen like midway through the movie or something? Because that's what you would have to do, right? Is they would, it's sort of like the comics, they would have to take him out too early, because you also don't want Splinter to not be involved in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So that gets very complicated, and Baron and his team did a really good job of organizing all of those events that are used from the comics in a new way, so that the Shredder can be the villain through the whole film. Because of course, famously, he dies in the first movie or in the first issue.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
And so we kind
exactly.
of bookend with the first issue in the movie, which is interesting, and I don't know if I've ever seen that anywhere else.
No, it is cool how much they take from the Mirage comics and how they rework other things.
So, way too many important things, and especially in talking about Mirage, have already happened, and we have to backtrack and talk about them now. Because I mean, we're what, 10, 15 minutes in, and we've already had events from like 3 or 4 different issues.
Yeah,
It's pretty
yeah, and
cool.
I was hoping to read every issue that this movie adapts, but it didn't happen. But in the little bit that I did read, like every single issue that I read made it into this movie, which is really cool.
Like I said, I want to talk a little bit about what this does take from the 87 show and how we feel about that. Is there any
Yeah.
part of you that wants this movie to be pure enough in adapting the Mirage comics that all the bandanas are red?
No. No, I think the bandana color change is just correct. Even though that's not what Mirage is, and that's at this point probably my favorite iteration so far. Um, I don't know. I think in terms of identifying them, it's a better choice to have them be multicolored. Although the turtles are different enough that I think you could have gotten away with it in this movie.
I would love to see that version and see just how difficult it is to tell them apart. And I honestly had never really had that until this last viewing. And I mean, I've seen this movie a million times, but I
Mhm.
found myself. And maybe it was just I went back like you did a little bit to Mirage. I didn't get very far, but I've read all that stuff before,
Yeah.
and I just found myself going, this is not. I mean, it's not a real bleak movie. Certainly, some people felt that way about it, especially in comparison to the cartoon show and it supposedly being a kids movie and all of that. The violence and the adult stuff is toned down even from what was shot in editing. Like famously, Tatsu kills a guy and now he is breathing and there's a voiceover where you know that he's not dead. It's stuff like that. But this last viewing, I found myself going, the multicolor headbands don't fit this movie really. Like
Yeah.
it,
Interesting.
it kind of wants them to be more muted than that. Or if they're different colors, they shouldn't be so bright. I feel like I kind of wish I could see the version where they
Just see what that
were
would look like.
they were either all red or they were just like slightly different variations
Hmm. Yeah, I do think
muted somehow.
because their designs overall are very different, which is nice because they didn't have to be. Like, there is a version of this movie where they cheap out and they're all the same sculpt.
Yeah. And the same
Uh,
skin color, because I think even the skin color is slightly different between them. Maybe I'm wrong
yeah,
about that.
possibly.
It's hard to tell with lighting choices and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't really pay too much attention to that, but like, obviously like Michelangelo's like the cute one, like he's got the big eyes, and Donatello's, for lack of a better word, a bit chubbier in the face, and Raphael is a bit gruffer looking.
Yeah, and he's got more scuff marks,
Hmm.
like
Yeah,
on his
exactly.
shell, and he's got a little scar on his face.
Also, because we're looking at them, I love how silly the Foot Clan soldiers look. It's specifically the eyes.
So this might just be my imagination. I'm having a lot of that right now with this
Mhm.
movie, but I don't remember when watching this as a kid being able to see the eyes behind the masks in the foot soldiers, and that makes me
That could
think
be an
high
HD
that
thing.
makes me think high def is not helping this movie.
No, and there is definitely some of that in terms of seeing the seams on the turtles.
Yes.
But I
Which
mean,
was
even
always a problem, but now it's of course much much worse.
yeah, and I mean, that's something when I got the Blu-ray for the original Star Wars trilogy, I said with the original film where you can see Darth Vader's eyes through the lenses. So there
I
is
didn't realize that.
definitely, yeah. And I mean, I've talked to people who say that they can't, but I don't know.
But
I
don't you
think
feel
you
like
can.
for something like this, and maybe even Star Wars, but there's a charm to that too.
Oh, 100%.
Certainly
Yeah.
doesn't kill the movie for me, or take me out to
Another
the point
thing,
where I'm like, I can't even appreciate the fiction.
yeah, another thing with the original Star Wars on HD that I noticed for the first time was you can see like scuff and like fingerprint marks on Darth Vader's helmet, which you can't in the sequels.
Oh, crazy.
And yeah, there's just a charm to it. Like you accept it.
This scene with April is also pretty much right out of the comics.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because they give the origin in the first issue, and then in this scene it just says like, "Go read the first issue if you want the origin."
That's in the second issue.
Yeah.
Steve Barron kept mistaking where the events were in the comics. Like, you could tell he hadn't looked at it in so long that he just didn't remember where anything was. He was like,
Oh, yeah.
he's like, I think this happens in the first issue. I'm like, do you know how thick that would be if April learning about the turtles was also in there?
Yeah, April's not even in that issue.
She's not. She's introduced, of course, as Baxter Stockman's assistant, and that was so. That's an example of a choice brought over from the '87 cartoon that I actually really agree with, and I think was smart as a device for this
Same
movie
here.
in keeping her as a news reporter as opposed to in a scientist assistant, partly because that would just be a whole other aspect to this movie that it doesn't have the money or time to deal with. There is a maybe 10 or 15 minute longer version of this that has like a Mouser subplot. I could see getting that in here. They just wouldn't have had the money to do all that.
There was a cut Mouser subplot from this movie?
No. I'm saying that I could see it. I'm saying that,
sorry,
that it wouldn't. I'm saying
sorry.
it wouldn't
Yeah.
ruin. You wouldn't ruin what's here. Like,
Yeah. No, sorry. I was like, for a second, I was like, wait a minute, what?
right.
Oh,
No,
yeah, sorry.
apologies. I'm just saying that there is a version you could have made that way, is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say.
Oh, absolutely. When you could have tied that into the Shredder stuff pretty easily.
Yeah, because in a lot of iterations now, Baxter Stockman is working for the Shredder.
That would probably replace the kid thing, but
Yeah, and that would be unfortunate, though. That would be a big mistake. And that's, I
that's
think,
a brilliant choice.
that's exactly what I was going to say, is that's inspired, because that does not come from comics. That is a brand new invention for this movie, and it explains something that you might kind of question in the Mirage comics. Those are, especially early on, like, even though they play it totally straight, they're, parroting Frank Miller, and they feel enough like a joke that you're not really going to question things like, where did all the ninjas come from? But in making it a movie, it is kind of nice to have an explanation for that. It's like, where did the Shredder get all these guys?
Yeah. Well, and on top of it just being awesome that the turtles are beating up kids the whole movie, there is just a cool parallel between Splinter and Shredder there.
I never thought about it like that. The turtles are just beating up children. It's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's why this is the best Turtles adaptation. They're just beating up children the whole time. They're
But no,
beating up the audience.
it's a really good examination of both what a real family looks like, regardless of status or what they look like or anything. Like, these are mutant turtles and a rat that live in the sewers, and they have things so much more figured out than a salaried guy who works for a news group and his son. Who, by the way, I wonder where the mother is. There's no explanation as to what happened to Danny's mom.
Yeah.
But it's an examination of that, and then it's kind of an indictment, I think, in the way culture and society at large is, what their attitude is toward children in the late 80s, early 90s. This is definitely of the time and in place with regards to that. Because there is a lot of concern at that time, of course, of like wayward youth and street crime and gangs and parents not paying enough attention to their kids and kind of just expecting, the state and public schools to do, the child raising for them and all of that. And that combined with
video games too, which is also part of that.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
I said, and they're sitting around playing video games on their off time too, which is part of that. The whole like video games make people violent.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they're actually making a statement about that. I think it's more just like at large commercialism and selling things to kids,
Yeah.
and the kind of holdover of 80s materialism into the 90s, where you have all these kids who don't have enough guidance, who are being told that they need things to make them happy. And so the Shredder preys on that, and he preys on commercialism. And then, yes, you're right, he takes whatever is in the culture that has been sold to them and bribes them with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. No, and he makes his own little cult. It adds so much more to just what could have been a very nothing villain plot in this movie.
Yeah, and it's a modern take on at least certain aspects of Pinocchio.
Oh, sure, yeah. I hadn't even thought of that. Absolutely.
It's what is it, Paradise Island, or no?
It's no,
not Paradise. That's Wonder
like
Woman.
that.
What is it called? Pleasant Island?
The island where kids get turned into donkeys,
yeah,
and forced into slavery.
Yes, exactly. It's that. But they're being lured in by evil adults who only want to use them for their own ends, but are pretending like they have their best interests at heart and calling it a family. It's that whole idea.
Yeah.
And,
well, it's just great too, because obviously Splinter finds the turtles, so like you're seeing both sides of that, of the adopted parenthood thing.
That's such a great point. That there's like an adoption angle to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the way kids turn out has something to do with luck. I always say you blame the parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You're seeing it done well, and then.
Do you feel like the old man with the umbrella undercuts that? When Raphael is freaking out about Splinter being lost, and the camera goes around him, and
when I watched it on my own, but now that you say that, like probably.
Dude, I had never had that thought again until this last viewing.
But it's such a small moment, and it's not like super jokey that.
It's not, but do we need it? Like,
no.
Why exactly is it there? Again, I'm with you. I appreciate that there are reactions in moments with regular people in the city.
Well, it makes me wonder if that's a cameo, and we just don't know who that is.
Yeah, Baron doesn't mention it if it is. Oh, something else I was going to mention real quick about the German soundtrack that was weird is that like 98% of it is in German, and then occasionally it switches back to the English for like one line of dialogue, and then it goes back to German.
Weird.
I don't know what's happening with that. It's very strange.
Is it for like nonsense words like cowabunga?
No, it's completely. It seems completely random. Because it won't be just one word; it'll be a whole sentence.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking of like something that maybe wouldn't translate.
No, but it isn't. That's what I was looking for, and it is not that. It's totally arbitrary.
That is really weird.
Something else Mira mentions, and I'll try not to just reiterate his commentary the whole time, but I'm sure a lot of you guys don't know some of these things. This was very enlightening to me. He wanted a different soundtrack, and I like the score for this movie, but I think some of it doesn't exactly match the visuals, or you can kind of tell that it doesn't go with the original vision. He wanted some kind of like punk stuff in it.
Oh man, because I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't like the soundtrack to this movie, and I think in a lot of places it's like really awkward. But when you say, oh, well, I mean, of course, Danny's got a Sid Vicious shirt.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason that was there, is he knew Sid Vicious and was trying to get some of that music in the film. It was supposed to be a whole, connective tissue thing.
No, I think that would have been a great choice, because I think it would have reflected the villains with the kids who are, rebelling against society in the way they are, and the turtles who can never be a part of society. That would have been a great choice.
Yeah, I guess I should amend what I said and say I like the soundtrack kind of like as its own thing. Like I'm used to it with the movie, obviously, and so like
Sure.
I have nostalgia for it and whatever. But like I don't think it's I don't think it's bad music. I don't think it's a bad score. I can just tell that it wants to be moodier than it is through about half of it. But like the darker stuff, especially on the Shredder side, like Shredder's theme is really good. I like that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, my issue is that a lot of the score is just kind of cracked out. It doesn't really match what's happening, I don't think.
Yeah, some of it feels like in an attempt to not make it feel too dark. And so it's compensating. And it feels like choices made by somebody other than the filmmaker, cause that's kind of what happened, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, because from my understanding, I think, wasn't Baron almost fired at one point because of tonal issues where he wanted it to be darker?
So there are conflicting reports about this. Should we talk about this now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
I know there's 3 editors too, because that was a thing as well.
And that's related to this. Yeah. So there are conflicting reports about that. For the longest time, a lot of what I knew about this movie, I was wrong about. It turns out, because we didn't have special features, and for a long time, people didn't know very much about this movie, and there were kind of assumptions that were made. Real quick, this is that scene. This is not that scene. Later on is the scene where he actually kills a guy. Pardon me. I know where we're at. Anyway, so what I had thought what I had heard, pardon me, for the longest time was that Baron had like arguments with New Line or with Golden Harvest or both. And they ultimately kind of kicked them out of the editing room, and they put it together their own way, and they lightened things up. What I found out this week so I got this from the Toy Galaxy video, and then Baron confirms like part of it, but he doesn't talk very much about it, like he doesn't want to. Apparently, so the budget for this movie originally, this is, by the way, one of my favorite shots in the whole movie, is just the introduction to Shredder as he's walking down this hallway. It's so cool. And his costume is perfect.
Cape is such a great choice.
It's perfect. You couldn't do better with this costume now. It's perfect. Anyway, maybe the cape looks a little bit like a trash bag, but other than that, it's perfect.
Well, I just love that Tetsu has to like pull it over his shoulders. He can't do it himself because he's covered in knives.
He just can't possibly. Well, I think it's more just an ornamental thing where he's too important to do that kind of thing himself. He's got to. But you're right. He probably couldn't physically do it if he wanted to.
Yeah, I just like to imagine that he's just so covered in knives he doesn't want to risk it because he's had times where he sliced himself.
There's a choice here I don't like, which is did you notice this?
Is it the "I am your father"?
No, he moves Tatsu pulls his cape out, and then there's this silly sound effect in the audio, and I can't tell if it's part of the score or not. But whenever one of the shoulder blade things is revealed, we get this like
yeah,
it's like we don't need that. That's weird.
Well, especially in the German version, it was probably like ka-chang, what you're saying.
And then there's a slide whistle on top of it. There's a deleted scene that I've only seen like 3 or 4 seconds of, but it looks really super cool, where apparently part of this ritual was Shredder having to fight some of his own guys, and he does it sitting down.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
It's awesome. He just fights him off with his hands. It looks so good. And they did it from like an aerial view. It's really cool.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Anyway, so this movie was originally supposed to only have a $6 million budget, 6 or 7. And it all went to the Creature Shop. It
Of
all went
course.
to the Hensons trying to build these suits.
Mhm.
And they had to scrimp and scrape and find the rest of the budget anywhere they could find it. And they ultimately got all the way up to 13 million, which is like a quarter of what Batman cost to make. And a quarter or a third, I think a quarter. And then right at the end, Baron, the movie was finished shooting, but there were pickups that he needed that he couldn't get, and some things he really wanted to go back and shoot to fill in stuff like apparently there was supposed to be a wide shot of the city when the Second Chance store or Second Time Around store is on fire. Like you only see it on fire. There was supposed to be a back off shot where you see where they do like a visual effect. Austin, where you see the whole like skyline with that on fire and things like that
Oh,
that they
okay.
just were not able to shoot or didn't have the money to do.
Yeah.
So he's looking for the money to finish the movie, and he goes to the head of Disney behind everybody's back,
Yeah.
and he's hoping to get Disney to agree to give him the rest of the money and then release the movie, even though New Line is supposed to be releasing the movie because he needs the rest of that money. So
Yeah.
he goes to the head of Disney. I forget his name right off. Who it was right then?
Was it Eisner?
I think I think it was. Yeah, that's what Baron says in his commentary, because Baron mentions part of this,
Mhm.
but he doesn't talk about everything the Toy Galaxy video did, and I'm not sure what their source is. So I'm just getting this from that. I don't know how true this is, because he doesn't talk about that, but he doesn't talk very much about it anyway. The Toy Galaxy video claims that what happened was New Line gets, or is it Harvest? One of the bigwigs involved with this movie gets a phone call from the head of Disney, who doesn't know that that was all behind their backs, right?
Mhm.
And he says, "I really liked your movie, but I don't, but I would actually like to go ahead and give you the money and release it." And he says, "Sorry, we're going with with New Line, who we already had, right?"
Mhm.
And that's when they stop working with the director, with Baron, and when they get rid of the editor. Now, Baron claims that they didn't like, or no, maybe it's not even Baron. What I had always heard was that they just didn't like the editor's work. This is the editor, by the way, who ends up going on and does every Quentin Tarantino movie.
I was gonna say one of them is the big Tarantino editor.
That's the first one. Yeah.
Okay.
She did it originally, but
Yeah.
it sounds like the real reason that they both got kicked off
Mhm.
is because of that phone call, or is
Because
because
of
he
this
went
Disney
to Disney.
thing.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Sorry, I spent way too long talking about that.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I didn't know any of that. Crazy. I can totally picture that though, because I've watched a lot of documentaries on the Nightmare movies, and Rob Shea, the guy who founded New Line, was very like "F you, I'll do it my way."
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me that he would get that call and be like, "Nope, screw you."
Yeah, well, in the conflicting report is that either they didn't like her editing job, or that she insisted on leaving in solidarity with Baron when they got rid of Baron.
Hmm.
So it's one of those two things.
Yeah, one of the two. Absolutely.
Anyway, back to the movie. So other things that they brought over from '87, pizza is not in the comics. I don't think you can. As the turtles are getting really popular, I think it would be a mistake to not include that.
So I have like a yes and no reaction to that, because on one hand, yes, that's a big part of the popularity. On the other hand, that none of that stuff works for me in this movie. It's just kind of there.
Yeah, well, we can argue about whether it's effectively done, but the
Yeah.
movie kind of doesn't get made without it as part of it.
Mhm.
Like you can complain about product placement, but if you don't have that,
Oh, and I don't care about
they
the
don't get the
product
funding to
placement.
make the movie. Is part of why I'm saying that. Is like they actually literally physically need pizza to make this film.
No, I'm
I
just talking about like
because the
the
Domino's
shtick.
endorsement is really important. But I also am doubling down on if kids went and saw this movie and pizza's not there, that's disappointing to them. And I think certain things like that and maybe an utterance of cowabunga is enough for the kids to feel like they're watching the same thing that they've been seeing on the cartoon, even though it is darker and there's a little bit more stuff there for adults. I think they compensate and they go way farther than they need to in making it more kid friendly. But I think some of those pieces of iconography kind of need to be there
Mhm.
for what ends up being your core audience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, and I mean, I'm glad that we were able to go farther, and they can say "damn" every 5 seconds and things like that.
The biggest place where the soundtrack doesn't work is actually during this scene.
It's for me, it's mostly during action scenes
Yep.
when it gets really bombastic.
Well, and they start scoring it like a cartoon,
Mhm.
where what is shot is not matching what you're hearing at all. Where you're like, there's no way that on set Baron is thinking this is what this movie is going to sound like.
Well, I think part of it too is because a lot of this is super cartoony, but it's like I don't know, it's like what's happening is Looney Tunes and the music is Disney. Like they're cartoony in different ways.
Yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, but like, I don't even go as far as Looney Tunes. Like, I don't think it's even that crazy cartoony. And I think if you score it right, you don't even notice how goofy some of this is. You know, like there's almost an anachronism I want, right?
Mhm.
Where the soundtrack is like matches some of the visual grittiness that you get, and then all of that is masking just how absurd the actual situation is. Like, some of my favorite stuff in this movie is where you play things straight, where what we're seeing is really silly fighting, but everybody's talking about it like they're these brilliant ninjas. I love that, where Splinter's like, oh, your training is almost complete, and one of the best lines in the movie is when Shredder says, you fight well in the old
The old
style.
style.
And
Yeah.
one of the last things you saw one of the turtles do was like put his head down in his turtle shell and like they spin around. I
There's
love
that
that.
part where they're like interlocked and they're rolling.
Yeah, you fought well in the old style.
Yeah, no, all that stuff's great. Um, what was I gonna say? And I love that Michelangelo bit before they fight. That's all great. Um, well, and even just outside of the action, like I love when we get the intro, or not the intro, the origin, and they don't make fun of the Splinter thing. Like it's just, yeah, he was a rat of a man, and as a rat, he would imitate his fighting,
Yeah, it's
and
played
that was
entirely
the Ninja
straight,
Master. Yeah,
just like it is in the comics.
and that's something we'll never do again. Like every time we do Splinter, we always have to try to justify it, and it's always lame.
Yeah, now I've always made the argument that the 87 show actually has the best origin for Splinter, and then IDW takes that even further, and I'm completely sold now on the reincarnation thing. I initially didn't care for it, and then Waltz totally makes me believe it and makes it work. Where Splinter is literally the turtle's father, and it's really cool, and it ends up working great. Where like they actually go all the way back to feudal Japan.
Yeah, and I would maybe like that if I read it, but on paper, I think that sounds
No,
kind of
I didn't like it
bad.
on paper either. When they alluded to it in the first issue, I was like, "This is bad. This is dumb. Don't do that."
Yeah.
But in '87, they simply make Splinter Hamato Yoshi in the first place, and I thought it was curious that the movie didn't do that.
No, I'm glad they don't. I prefer it. Like your thing is called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Own how absurd you are. Like I don't. I've always seen the cartoon as being like, we're a little too afraid of that.
Oh, I don't agree, but because I think it's just as absurd. I mean, you just like the '87 show just takes a lot of human beings and mixes them with animals and mutates them. I don't know how that's any less silly.
I mean, I think seeing a rat learn ninjutsu from watching a man is way sillier.
It is, but the problem is it's one of the only things that's that far of a leap in logic, really. You know what I mean? Like it's fun that they play it as straight as as they do, but it doesn't really make sense, like even in the internal logic of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can certainly agree to disagree on that. This is a point I've had for 15 years, and I kind of stand by it. Like,
I mean, I just look at it as, yeah, I'm watching a thing with 4 giant turtles fighting people. That's nowhere near as absurd as that premise is.
no, I disagree with that.
That's fair.
Because you have you have a device, you have a MacGuffin. That would be like saying, well, you have time travel, so you don't need an internal logic. You can just do anything you want to. No,
But I don't think that's not having an internal logic. I think that's.
I do. Are there so all over the planet you have animals that are smart enough to be brilliant ninja fighters before they get mutated? No, that's a bridge too far.
That's fair. I don't agree. I think that's right level of absurdity for this material.
If you had enough other stuff like that, and like at the point where you do bring in like your Dimension X and your Triceratons and all those sorts of things, now it's a little bit easier for me to swallow stuff that goofy. But like this is a little more grounded than that, and I don't get the sense that we would go there in this universe. Now, they were supposed to with the sequel, but then the sequel also was sillier and more heightened than this in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. This is one of those cases where I've kind of taken a position. Like I think at the end of the day, we're actually kind of like there's truth in both arguments. I think we're kind of both right, but I always liked, and part of it's just, you know, I grew up with the '87 show. I've always liked the idea that Hamato Yoshi is actually a person.
Well, the only thing that I love about the cartoon show thing is that they establish, you know, whatever animal you touch last is what you turn into. And the turtles touch Yoshi, so they become humanoid turtles, and Yoshi touches turtles, so he becomes a rat.
Yeah, it's really stupid. Well, and I'm not saying that I want everything to be like that show, because obviously that show doesn't hold up great, and it's
talking about that. That's
a lot of totally ridiculous
point I wanted to make.
Nonsense.
Speaking of Splinter, I think visually this is the best version by far.
I think it's the best version of almost everything.
Yeah.
And Robert Wilde mentioned that earlier, that you know you kind of don't get better than these turtle designs. I feel that way too,
because after the Michael Bay films, we can't get away from overcomplicating their designs.
You know what I want to blame for that more than anything, though?
What's that?
Just superhero costumes in movies.
No, and that's definitely part of it.
Like, we can't get away from texture with everything, too. This is the scene where Tatsu kills a man, but he doesn't actually kill a man. See, this guy is dead. Yeah. And then somebody goes, he'll be all right, and then you hear him breathing.
That's like the...
no, that man was dead.
I didn't notice that until you said it. That is the...
I've talked about this before, but...
That is the animated G.I. Joe movie thing, where after the Transformers one, they were like, oh man, we can't kill off Duke, our main character, because everyone was mad about Optimus Prime. So there's just like an 80-yard line. I mean, it's animated, but like they add it later, where they're like standing over his dead body, and somebody goes, he slipped into a coma.
So they do a really good job of making us, you know, feel bad both for Splinter being in this position and the turtles. But I really like, you know, have you thought about this as a cost-cutting measure? Like trussing up Splinter like this through the majority of the movie so that you can see full body shots of him, but his legs don't have to move. So we just have Kevin Clash with his arm in the back of Splinter through this, and most of the body doesn't have to move.
Yeah, no, I think if you don't really know about how the sausage is made, you're not thinking about that. But the only time Splinter ever looks bad in this movie is that end shot where he arrives on the building,
Yeah.
and that shot of him standing before he fights Splinter or Shredder.
And now we're already in Northampton,
Yep.
which is a lot of issues into Mirage, and they spend a fair bit of time there.
Yeah, it's always what I've heard. And then it's like a big moment when they go back.
Yeah. And you get a lot of pathos for all the turtles.
Yeah, this is some of the best stuff in this movie is here.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's also the place where you can most tell where things are either cut out or like moved around.
Well, and then there's weird stuff where there's stuff that's shot with Michelangelo that they
That's what I was
dub
going to talk
over.
about.
Yeah. No, there's like a whole cut subplot with Michelangelo here.
Yeah, well, he's the one that she doesn't have a drawing for. And there's evidence that there was one. There's a scene where you see where you see 4 drawings stacked on top of each other. And so we've seen 3 of them. There's one underneath. That's Michelangelo. We don't know what it looks like, but she had to have drawn him. Unless she drew Casey Jones. I always thought it was kind of odd that you don't have her bring up Michelangelo in her list of everybody else as she does the drawings. But then she also, at the end of all that, goes, and then there's Casey Jones, as if he's like the 4th turtle and she's forgotten Michelangelo. And you kind of want a drawing of Casey Jones.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think with what we have here, I like the subtle stuff with Michelangelo. Like I said earlier with that scene where you won't address the possibility of Splinter's death.
Yeah.
And then you have the moment later on where he's crying. But then when you find out there's like a whole deleted subplot with him, and you realize that like Raphael screaming Splinter on the roof is actually Michelangelo.
It's Michelangelo.
It makes you go, oh man, but there was like that was a lot better originally. Also, This is just T2, right?
Oh, I never had that thought.
Yeah, I had that too when I was watching it last night. I was like, oh, they just took this from T2. Oh, wait, that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, T2 took it from this. No. Yeah.
And then we immediately cut to the only time Donatello does machines.
Yep, there are 2 places where he sort of seems like he might know something about science.
So
one of them is here, and the other one is when he says something about structural integrity when a roof is about to collapse. That's it.
Yeah, so I've always remembered this as being Donatello has none of that, and I was surprised rewatching it that there were like little moments, and specifically, there's a lot of him going like he's the smart one, so he goes.
He's thinking.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, so like there is some of that. He's not interchangeable with Michelangelo like I always rememred.
One of the most memorable images
there was room to grow
of the whole movie is the position that Leonardo is in on the stool.
Oh, 100%.
It just feels like a lot of thought was put into exactly how he was going to sit there.
Yeah, that frame.
Especially because he keeps going back into exactly that position. And, of course, she draws him in that position. So they're super careful about keeping him there. And it's bored in my mind. I actually considered briefly when I decided I was going to get a Ninja Turtles tattoo of getting that drawing.
That?
Yeah.
That would have been good.
I just decided it was too melancholy for my tattoos.
Yeah. Well, I also just love that you have that very like visually striking image of Leonardo, and then you cut to Raphael, who's just like in the bathtub. Like they put him in the most uncomfortable position.
That's great.
He's in like a Family Guy death pose. It's really funny.
So I've always heard that when Casey Jones gets on the porch swing, that when it breaks and it falls, it was an accident and he just stayed in character. Baron doesn't confirm or deny that.
I think you can tell just in the shot the way that he looks.
Yeah, but the way he talks about it, he calls it a gag.
Yeah.
Which kind of suggests it was planned.
But I don't think there's any way it was. I think it was definitely.
He's probably just not remembering 20 years later, because it's important to note that he recorded that commentary in 2010, which
Oh,
is
okay.
more recent than I expected. Like, he was talking about things like Where the Wild Things Are, because that had just come out.
Weird. Okay. Raphael should have woken up and been like, "Why was I laying like this?"
I got such a crick in my neck.
Yeah, he should be more angry now than he was before.
One of the things that most sells the turtle costumes is being real is just the texture.
Oh yeah. I mean, these are some of the best stuff the Henson Company ever did.
Ever did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason Barron got the project was because he worked with Henson on a short-lived series called The Storyteller.
Yeah. Oh, there's another moment that doesn't age well with HD, where Donatello laughs and his mouth reveals the man underneath.
That's a meme now.
Oh, is it?
Yes, that is a very popular meme.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
That's made fun of all the time, where people have slowed it way down and then they try to make it look as nightmare fuel as possible, because it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, try not to look at that scene too close, because it's hard to get out of your head. You might have nightmares.
Yeah, we just passed that Michelangelo yelling as Raphael. That's another thing you can argue came from the '87 show, even though it's unintentional.
What's that?
They put the wrong voices in.
Yeah, but they did it on purpose.
No, I know. I'm just joking.
They wanted to.
No, they were changing the meaning of the scene.
Yeah, because Raphael was the only really conflicted turtle we've had, and I wish they'd left all that stuff with Michelangelo in. But
Yeah,
my guess
I
is
just see what that is. I also it happens for a split second, but I want more scenes of Donatello in that weird straw hat he's wearing for half a second.
Oh, me too.
At the beginning of this training montage.
Yeah, well, they get that really moody Michelangelo stuff from the Northampton arc.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's like that there. Where it's like
cool.
he takes all of that harder than anybody else. Is how I remember it. It's been a while since I read that.
Yeah, and from what I've read, he's the one that gets the least to do. So that's cool to know.
Casey Jones is really forceful with April here. You would not make this scene like this now. Just throwing that out there. Do you like them together? Like, do you think they have romantic chemistry?
I think they're like the most I don't know, not serviceable, but just like they're just here because it's like the thing you put in your movie, the like romance.
Yeah, well, and they get together with the comics, but
No, I just mean like your movie kind of needs this. Like I don't think it's especially good or bad. Like it's just kind of here.
It'd be nice if they had more time to spend with it, I suppose. But they win me over on it the most at the end. Like, it is maybe an obligatory kiss, but the way they play it is really sweet, and so I kind of buy it.
Well, I like the turtles cheering them on.
Yeah.
That's the best part about it, absolutely.
No, it's great. There's a little bit of blood on Splinter's face there.
Yeah, Splinter just looks so good in this movie.
And now suddenly I'm getting the image of Rocket Raccoon from Guardians 3.
Yeah, sure. Well, and there's a Ninja Turtle in Guardians 3.
That's true. Something about their playing Trivial Pursuit is really funny. Just the line reading of what Russian novel. What Russian novel? It's great.
Donatello's smart one is he was the one who got it.
And he remembered marshmallows. See, he's the smart one.
Yeah.
That's what smart people do.
And he goes, heh.
So I was going to make this point earlier. I've come to a realization that there are three major aspects to Ninja Turtles that a lot of screen things will only take two of. And leave,
you think this hits all three?
And leave a third one out. And this movie leaves one out.
Okay.
So you have the, like, street level ninja stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have mysticism, and then you have, well, when I say ninja stuff, like the mysticism goes with the ninja stuff, but you can do like a really grounded street level thing that doesn't really have any of that. But it's like street level crime stuff, mysticism, and cosmic, like space and interdimensional stuff. And this movie has two of the three. But when you don't know where the ooze comes from, it is possible that that is a dipping the toe in, and eventually, if you made more, you could get the cosmic stuff, because the ooze could come from space or from another dimension.
Well, I think
we never get
about
that.
Utrum's being
but it was supposed to,
too, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Said, well, and there's supposed to be a reveal about Utrams in the second one, wasn't there?
Yeah, that would have been the secret of the ooze.
Yeah.
It's also curious that the canister does not say TCRI.
No, it's like T. Oh no!
In the sequel, it's TGRI, but in this you don't
have that.
You don't see a logo, is what I'm saying. You don't get anything.
Yeah. No, I got what you're saying. Yeah, 'cause I noticed that yesterday.
But yeah, sorry, I brought that up to say this has a slight bit of the mysticism side with really no explanation, and I appreciate that. I kind of like that it's just there and there's really no discussion about it, and it just Splinter is so in tune with his Eastern training and religion, if you like, that he is able to like reach out and in like the astral plane and talk to his sons. And I also appreciate that doesn't come out of nowhere, because we've gotten a subtle hint of it earlier when Splinter and Leonardo like feel each other.
No, that plays into like me liking the Splinter origin thing too. I like that it's not really explained; it just happens. Like it's just It's
yeah.
It's not silly.
No, you make a good case for it when you mention that, because like, why do I like that, but I don't like Splinter? I don't know. I have a tough time with a tiny rat brain being able to learn ninja skills.
But Cap, it's okay because we get the image of a little rat going, which is why it's okay.
How do you feel about the way that stuff is shot? That it's done on a high-8 camera, I found out.
Oh, the kind of blurry look to it?
Yeah, like it does that to denote that it's old and it's a flashback. And a lot of people think that it's one of the things that makes the movie look cheaper than it needs to, but there's like a reason for it. I don't know how to feel about it, because you're having to do it in stop motion on top of it being shot in intentionally not very good quality.
I don't know. I don't mind it. I like that like the background goes out and it's like in a black void.
I like that too.
Yeah, no, I like that choice well enough. Okay, what does that line mean? Your father's gonna have kittens.
That's a thing people used to say in the olden days.
Oh, okay, so I'm just too young for that?
Yes.
See, if they made it now, she said, your father's gonna be mid.
Yeah, and I had no idea what he was talking about. You know, I would say like, look, Shredder is fire because he got his guys to set the place on fire. Then everybody would go, that's not what that means, Cap. You need to get up with the times.
Yeah. Oh, this is another thing I need you to
I go. That part is lit because everything's on fire.
This is another part I need you to explain to me.
Yeah, I'll do it. I understand everything.
Why is Casey Jones afraid to sleep in the sewer because of claustrophobia, but he'll sleep in a truck?
Because...
And why does Donatello go, oh, you don't want to sleep in the sewers, you must be claustrophobic?
No, that second part, I'm with you. There are several other possibilities. Why does it... Oh, but that's another Donatello Does Machines thing, right? It's like, he's the smart one. He knows what claustrophobia is.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
I hadn't had that thought before.
And he sits with his legs crossed.
That's another joke that, like doesn't really hold up now just because of the way like lingo and things has changed. And I didn't think about this until the last time I saw it, but it's really funny where he's like, no, I'm not claustrophobic. I've never looked at another man before. And homophobia now is what we is what we say when we're talking about people who don't like or are afraid of gay people. So that's really funny. Claustrophobia to mean gay, or like that's what he thinks for a second. I think that's very amusing. But I'm with you that it's weird that Donatello knows that he's claustrophobic. He doesn't.
This only happens because he needs to be out here for when Danny leaves.
No,
so I see him.
I guess so, but I kind of get that, where like he doesn't think he's claustrophobic, but he really doesn't want to be in the sewer, and he won't like admit what it really is. So he goes, no, I can sleep in the truck. Like, it's the only other option. It's the only other place to go.
No, and that makes sense because he's like sleeping in the truck and he's like clearly bothered with it too. I just don't understand how being in the sewer is claustrophobia. Like, you're not in a
that I agree with. I'm with you.
Yeah,
it's not really an enclosed space.
Yeah, no, that was like the main thing.
If the ceilings were really low.
Yeah. No, it's just weird.
Yeah, it's not really a tight space.
It's just kind of like a forced moment to get him out here so that he sees this, but he could have also just seen him if he was sleeping in the sewer.
No, you're right. That's convenient. Because they could have just let time pass. Everybody's asleep. Casey Jones is having a hard time sleeping because he doesn't want to be in the sewer. He notices Danny leave and he follows him. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like a weird moment.
I agree.
Yeah.
That is true.
Agreed.
Do you feel like this movie is, in being an independent film, in not having the resources that they wished they had, apart from the suits, do you think the turtle suits? Do you think anything about this movie feels too rough around the edges? Or like you wish it looked more professional? Because I don't really have that, but there's people that do.
No, the fact that it has that feeling is the thing I like about it. It's part of why I wish, now that you said it, it had the punk soundtrack it was supposed to have.
Yeah, because it's too commercial.
Mm-hmm. No, it feels like a cool movie adapting just two guys making a comic that took off. You know what I mean? Like it's got, like it captures that, I think, in how rough it is.
Yeah, and that's what's so unusual about it, is that there's reverence for the source material, and they're not just trying to real quick slap together something that will strike while the iron is hot. It's really the He-Man movie if it had worked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Which we just did last time. Because
that was part of why studios didn't want to pick it up, right?
That's right.
They were like, well, if we do this, it's a movie based on a cartoon, it's going to be the He-Man thing again.
Well, I feel like in certain ways that movie was trying to do what this is, because it wanted to appeal to a broader audience, and it was trying to be, in its way a little bit darker than that show, but this was much smarter with its small budget.
Well, it also helps that this came out in the height of the popularity and not way too late like He-Man did.
Yeah, which is interesting because I guess He-Man just didn't have as long of a shelf life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Because that movie comes out in 87, and I think He-Man starts in, 83, 84? I mean, it's actually...
something like that, yeah.
It's actually about the same time difference, it's just that Turtles stayed popular. Because that starts in 87. As they start making this, they've... Or they start shopping it around, I should say. The cartoon had just started. The toys were just beginning to be sold. Mm-hmm. And you're right, it comes out at the height of the popularity, but it had already been on the air two and a half years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. No, and them shopping it around when they did probably helps that the show had only just started. Because any further into it, and there probably would have been a lot more of the show in this. But it also, I'm sure, helps that Eastman and Laird were involved with this and wanted it to be more of their work, from what I understand.
Well, and it's important to note that the Turtles publicist, the guy that really got all of this started in the first place, that got together with Eastman and Laird and convinced them to make the deal with Playmates and get the show started and all of that. It was his idea. What is his name? Freeman. It was his idea. As far as I've read. This is in the big Ninja Turtles coffee table book that I have. The visual history. It was his idea to try to make this more accessible to adults and not just do more of the cartoon show on the big screen, because he didn't think that would be very popular, that would be very successful, and he thought
probably would have made the series more of a fad.
Yeah, and he said, you have to do something a little bit different and a little bit smarter with it, also to keep the brand alive. Like, he thought that a movie had to happen to keep the thing popular, and he was absolutely right about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the key to anything when you're adapting it is, like, don't repeat yourself. Always try to be doing something different when you're adapting it.
Yeah, that's what McFarlane always said about Spawn. It's one of the things I actually agree with him on.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. Otherwise, you get Superman Returns, and look how that turned out.
Well, and going back to Masters of the Universe and some of these other kind of independent B-movie attempts at things, I look at this movie and I say, I really wish more comic book movies had been like this, had not been big studio things, had to deal with minimalism and be creative in these situations. And then I go, but that was attempted several times, and it was just done by people maybe not as competent or that didn't like the material as well, because this happened several times, and this is one of the only movies that got past like kind of bad fan film or past take the initial concept and make it something completely different. Because how easy would it have been for something for this to turn into something like the unreleased Fantastic Four? And Corman almost made this, by the way. Or
and that's the best Fantastic Four.
But even like what does that tell you? Or Captain America from 1990.
That's what I was about to mention. Yeah.
Same year.
Or even the 70s Captain America.
Yeah. Or Dolph Lundgren, Punisher, which I like more than a lot of people, but this is still a better movie than that.
No, definitely. I mean, you won't agree with me, but I like this movie more than 89.
But I respect that, and I understand why. Because
and I like 89 a lot as well. Like, it's not like it's this movie and then 89's way down here.
Yeah.
But like I would say I like this movie slightly more.
But like 89, I can tell you what the thematic starting places are. I can't tell you what that movie's about at the end of the day. The completed version. This start to finish is actually exploring a theme to some degree. It's not in an idea. It's not super deep or nothing. It's not going to change hearts and minds. But it isn't what Ebert and some other critics treated it as. That like it's just a bunch of silly stuff that happens. I mean, Ebert was fairer to it than a lot of people, or than a lot of critics, because he said, it's better than I thought it was going to be, and probably the best Ninja Turtles movie you can make, and he was right about that so far.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of these now, and this is still the best one.
Well, I think it always will be.
But there is certainly heart to it, and the family ideas shine through. And yeah, lots of movies are about family, but I really do appreciate the parallels and the mirroring between what Shredder is doing, what Splinter is doing, and that they're not just rivals because of a backstory.
Oh, that's another thing that I wanted to mention, which is they really simplified the Shredder backstory in this from the comics, and that's definitely for the best.
Yes, because it's convoluted in the comics.
It is, yeah. It's fine for that issue, but it's convoluted.
Yeah. It's like he had an older brother that fell in love with
Sub-Zero backstory from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. that falls in love with that woman, and then he wants revenge for his brother getting killed. Because if you read that, not realizing that's what the backstory is, you'll think that Oroku for a second, you'll think Oroku had a different name in the first issue. You'd be like, who's this Oroku Nagi guy? I think his name is Nagi.
It is Nagi, yeah, because I had exactly that. I was like, oh, his name's Nagi in this.
And then
one?
you turn the page, and here's his 7-year-old brother, Oroku. I always... it took me a long time to realize that Sam Rockwell is all through the movie.
Yeah, that was one of those things.
Of course, famously, it's his first film.
That was one of those things where I feel like I hit a certain age and I kept hearing YouTube videos be like, did you know that Sam Rockwell is in this movie? And they only use that clip where he says he's down on Easton Lairdman.
Lairdman Island, yeah.
Yeah. And then I rewatched and it's like, oh, he's here throughout.
He's there at the very beginning.
Yeah.
He's one of the first thugs that you see.
Movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and he gets to talk to Splinter.
Well, he gets this kind of human moment where, like, you know, he
has an arc.
Yeah, he does have an arc.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that opportunity for change there, and then you see him I mean, I guess they all sort of are forced to turn around because, well, what are you going to do now? The Shredder's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, he's dead.
Let me go ahead and read some super chats here. And sorry it's taking me so long, folks, but this is a short movie, and I'm finding
it moves so fast.
We're having a hard time getting to everything we want to talk about. Bob the Hun, $5 super chat. Not only does Mikey not want to talk about it, but he's also the only one crying at the campfire. They're all sad, but he's the only one in tears. I never noticed that.
Yeah. No, he's full on crying. It's a really sweet moment. Like I said, what's here works really well, but knowing that there was more, I want to see what that looked like. He's also, as a kid, it was always Raphael was the best turtle, and as an adult, it's Michelangelo.
You know, this doesn't actually have anything to do with this movie, but something that I noticed going back to some of Mirage is there's a line, I think maybe it's at the end of the second issue, where they have like a battle cry, and it's turtles die with honor. Mm-hmm. And in the cartoon show, Leonardo is constantly saying turtles fight with honor, and I didn't realize that came from Mirage, and they changed it to be more kid-friendly.
I'm surprised it wasn't turtles destroy with honor. That's my favorite shot because it's so stupid when they're rolling with each other, and then stop.
That's great.
Up and he kicks them. It's so stupid, but I love it.
I will read these other super chats as soon as I can. My browser has kind of frozen up on me here.
Oh, no. Here, do you want me to read them?
Yeah, would you mind? Because I can't hardly look at anything right now.
Yep. Oh, crap. Hold on.
It's coming up, but it's taking its time.
On me.
Oh, I think it's back. I think I might be.
Okay, I got it.
Oh, good. Yeah, would you go ahead and read that?
Yeah, $5 from Chewbacca's lover. Imagine the alternate world where Splinter dies. You would have kids crying. You would see it all the same lists as Optimus Prime and Simba's dad. I mean, that is inherently correct. I'm glad that he doesn't die, though. But that's because I'm just more invested in the Splinter and Shredder story than I am the Turtles.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at it narratively, and I'm going, all roads are leading to him dying. The problem is the Turtles' arc kind of feels unfinished, or like there's not really enough of an arc for them. Where like they have to face it head on for a second, and then at the end, like, what do they really learn? What exactly is the self-discovery? Like, once he does die, we'll be okay, I guess?
I think the issue is just that they don't save him. And it's Casey Jones. That's my only issue with it.
Yeah. I think you can pay it off better if he's not going to die, or if you're not going to do that, just like rewrite the story then. Don't make it about that stuff. But like, that's the stuff that works the best in the movie, but I don't think it's paid off right. Mm-hmm. So there's another, either way you go, there's another draft to do. How do you feel about, and I bring this up every time we talk about this movie, but
yeah, it's exactly where I knew you were going.
But you have to, because Casey Jones also starts to seem like he has an arc, and then he doesn't exactly. You have the Raphael microseries thing where Raphael comes in and doesn't like that Casey Jones is brutalizing criminals. You're not doing this right. I'm not going to let you be a vigilante in this way. You've got to wheel it in. And, like, there's not a lot of talk beyond it, but that is there. And then you get to the end of the movie, and he just crushes Shredder. It's like,
that's not where I thought.
He's not learned anything either.
I that's fine with me. That doesn't bother me.
But then why bring that up?
I don't know, because it separates them. But he's still just him. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just this kind of weird footnote where it's like, I don't like that you're beating up criminals so hard, and then it's never addressed again.
That's one of those things where the comic satire is bleeding in, because he's obviously the Punisher.
Yeah.
And the Daredevil stuff is gone, obviously, with the Turtles, but then you have that still kind of bleeding in a little bit.
I love this guy's performance in the scene. It's a thing I never really noticed that hard until this lag. I picked up a lot more this viewing, and I've seen this a million times. But he squints one eye when he's talking to the turtles, like real hard, and then the other eye is open pretty wide. I like that choice. He's just so menacing and sadistic. It's wonderful.
When he's got like the smile under the mask too.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. No, he's quite good.
And I like being able to see the performance under the mask. I like that you can see his mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here. No, Shredder's design is great.
RJ Godzilla is telling me to stop overthinking things. Well, Austin should stop underthinking things.
Hey,
because Austin's like,
I'm proper thinking.
Nah, I like that. It's fine. I don't care if they bring it up and it never comes up again.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not. I don't know. I don't even really see it as like an arc thing. It's just Raphael's like, hey, stop doing that. And then Casey Jones is like, nah, bro, I'm me.
And then they're just fine with each other later, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I mean that scene I think earlier is just kind of strange.
Or maybe the idea, or maybe the idea is that when it comes to the foot, like you have to be that hard edged.
Well, they're probably like, and they don't see him do that.
So this
they're
scene,
like, Splinter killed him.
Yeah, this scene is storyboarded very close to the panels in the comics, all the way down to Shredder actually reaches behind him and pulls something out. And in the comics, it's a thermite bomb. Yeah. He tries to blow them both up. Or blow them all up, because it's actually the turtles over the roof.
Yeah.
But here he pulls out a knife, which is smart.
Well, it's funny because he pulls out a grenade and then Donatello like spears him in the head with his bow staff that makes him fall.
Well, am I going to read this really dark comment?
If you want to.
Dimwit Monkey says, I wish Shredder was my dad. Just have to get over the fact that he would probably beat his children.
I mean, it's okay because a rat will drop him off a roof.
You just want him to be your dad because you want regular or menthol when you're a kid, or because he has arcade machines. You can play Narc or whatever that arcade machine was.
Oh yeah, Narc. They're playing that like insane final boss from Narc. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's insane.
I haven't.
It's a giant head on wheels, and then you shoot it, and then the like skin blows off, and it's a skeleton head, and then it's on a chain, and it swings around, and you just see the swinging around skeleton head thing. But the entire boss is insane, and he looks like the guy who sings Mambo Number 5 when he's just a head.
It would have been really easy to establish Danny and his dad as the face of the problem with the Foot Clan, and then not really resolve it, not really deal with it, and they get like really sufficient screen time to make that arc work. It's like exactly what you need.
Well, you know what the biggest thing with it is, nowadays, is that nowadays we wouldn't even bother with that subplot.
No, I agree.
So like, even if you were to look at it and be like, this is kind of underdeveloped, at least it's there.
At least it's there. But you need to humanize it. And I don't think it's underdeveloped. I think you get exactly...
No, I don't either.
I think you get exactly what you need from it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm just saying if you have
it's very economical. I mean, like, I think that's handled maybe even better than getting April and Casey together.
Yeah, I'd agree.
You got to go to Lairdman Island. We just made up a whole island.
Well, and I like that they flip it where instead of Eastman and Laird, it's East and Lairdman.
No, it's not Easton. The East Warehouse at Lairdman Island. I see. Because I didn't understand what you were saying. I was like, that's not what it's called. It's Lairdman Island. But I forgot that he said East Warehouse.
Yeah.
That's why. So they got East in there. Mm-hmm. Okay, I never really thought about that.
No, I love that they take Eastman and they put the man part and put it on Laird. That's really fun.
Yeah, well, they're being clever about it and trying not to be too referencey, which is nice. And, you know, we're real minimal about pop culture references. This is a thing that Jason and I were talking about the other day when we reviewed the new movie, that it's just dated so hard that, like, you know, a week from now, there's going to be stuff that doesn't even play in that movie anymore. And there are dated references in this movie, but they're few and far between, and a lot of the pop culture references are like old, really old things, but arguably timeless stuff. So, you know, like Academy and all of that.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. That's
but then you have
one where kids aren't gonna know what that means anymore, but they're not referencing anything from the time.
But they didn't know what it meant in 1990 either.
No, of course.
But there are a couple of references from then that went over my head as a kid. That are also more dated now, like moonlighting. It's kind of weird that we referenced moonlighting in this movie.
Yeah. That's fair.
I think we had another super chat somewhere, maybe.
Yes.
And I'm scrolled down so far I can't find it.
$2 from Bob the Hun. He says, "Can we keep her? Wouldn't have that line now."
No, that's true.
That's basically the line in the Casper movie as well. Can I keep her?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That was
just a thing in the 90s. It was really weird.
Okay, so it's so weird that you just referenced that, because something else I learned from Steve Barron's commentary. Do you know about this? He was offered that movie.
I didn't know that.
By Steven Spielberg.
Weird.
And he didn't want to repeat himself.
That makes sense.
Make another kind of kids movie, so he didn't take it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So that is like the ultimate dud of an ending, I think, for this movie. That's overall pretty great. Is just I made the funny.
See, all he had to do was say, I like Cowabunga, and leave it at that.
And I don't know.
That's good.
That's just lame.
That's okay. No, I don't love it either, but
yeah.
I do think Donatello trying to come up with something that goes with Mega or whatever it is really funny.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of that catchphrase stuff is the stuff that dates it the most. And, you know, watching it, I'm like, I'm not really into this stuff, but I'm into a lot of the other stuff. So it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, well, and just some of the general cartooniness that's done with the Turtles. And I think some of that is...
Whoa, Bill Finger is the second assistant cameraman.
Yeah, there's just only so many name combinations that are possible, Austin.
I know. I'm sure it's the same guy.
Was he even still alive at that point?
No, I don't
think he was. Anyway, the Turtles... So I think that there's a concerted effort to, in kind of an overcompensation in places, to make sure that the Turtles like don't feel like puppets, and so we have to make them emote harder than you would if it was just a human performance. And so there's a lot of like weird grunts and things that I really wish weren't there, and we do way more of that by 2 and 3, but you still get a lot of like, huh? My
favorite thing with the Turtles is that anytime there's action, and they're, the guys that, like, the stunt guys,
Yeah.
they have like the frozen faces that are always like, and
Right.
they're always like way more pissed off than they are normally.
It's pretty unnatural. There are a few places where you can tell that they're not using the hero suits because they have a face that's frozen on them, and they usually use those for farther back shots. So those are lighter suits that don't have all the servos in the head, and it's a light head that just has one face that's plastered on it. And when Raphael is angry and running around the scaffolding, he has one expression on his face, and you don't see it much, but occasionally he'll turn around, and he just has that one face that he can't move.
My favorite example of it is
in the train station?
Fight. No, it's in the end fight when Leonardo runs at Shredder, and Shredder knocks him down, and his face is just like...
I do think, getting back to your complaint at the end, though, I do think some of the stuff that you and I don't love with this is kind of advantageous for them ultimately with, again, the target kid audience. Because I think
100%.
The catchphrases and all that, like, the kids love that stuff. It does make it feel like the thing that they've been watching every week. And I think kids had their cake and ate it too with this, where on one hand, it had enough of the cartoony stuff that they were familiar with, and so they felt at home, but it also felt like a more adult movie that maybe they shouldn't be watching, and so they were like, look at me, I'm watching this, like, more mature thing, or it feels more valid and relevant because, the movie poster catchphrase, this ain't no cartoon. Kids really bought into all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I think that's why it's the most dated stuff in it for me. Is that's the most like fad thing. Like that's the say the line Bart stuff in this movie, and it just is what it is. I'm glad that the rest of the movie is way beyond that. It's just those are the moments where I go like, yeah, I have to settle for that stuff.
This song in the credits is weird because it sounds like it belongs in Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I ripped the earplug out because I was like, I don't want to have to listen to this. This sounds terrible.
It sounds like a Ghostbusters song, though.
Yeah, kind of. I was thinking Back to the Future.
No, there's that song right at the end of Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like this. It might be the same group. I don't know. Robert Wild, Turtle Power, or Go Ninja Go?
Easily Go Ninja Go.
Yeah, see, I have more nostalgia for Turtle Power because I listened to it constantly when I was a kid, but the rapping is not good.
Yeah, so I don't like either, but Go Ninja Go is, I think, funnier. Like, it's so stupid. So I would give it to that.
Ninja Rap just has some really lame rhymes.
Well, I tuned completely out in the verses. I just know Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go. Have I ever told you about the time when I was driving while blasting that?
Oh no, sorry. I meant Turtle Power over the Go Ninja Go. I'm just saying like Turtle Power. It's got some just embarrassing rhymes.
Yeah. No, it does. No, and it's funny, like a year apart, how different they are. We're like TORTLE Power is more of like a 90s rap song, and then Go Ninja Go is obviously very 90s. And it's funny how in just a year you get that.
Do you so just with this movie, do you have a favorite turtle?
Yeah, I was saying earlier, it's as a kid it was always Raphael, but I think now it's Michelangelo.
Oh, I'm sorry if I missed that.
No, it's okay. Like you said, there was so many things to talk about. This isn't a movie I quote a lot, but I only ever quote Michelangelo when I do, and it's Ninja Kick the Damn Rabbit and fellow chucker, eh? And I say both of those lines pretty often.
Yeah, he definitely gets the best one-liners. Raphael was always my favorite from this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because, he gets the most to do, and I always appreciated, even as a kid, like the pathos with him, that he's allowed to be so emotional and conflicted and upset about things, and he like angsty, and just as a kid when you've been watching the cartoon show, like that's really cool. Where you're like, this feels like a real guy, and he's going through stuff.
Well, and kids just love the angsty characters. That's your like Knuckles or Shadow.
Yeah, that's true. Some of it's just facial expressions.
Yeah, because I think that's all it was for me as a kid. And then as an adult, I'm like, nah, I relate more to Michelangelo.
Yeah, and of course, this really popular. I mean, this popularized a lot of stuff with Turtles, but it really popularized the Raphael Leonardo rivalry, which is faithful to the comics too, and is just like a real classic thing with them now. And it seems like a lot of Turtle stuff now in adaptation, to other medium. To other media, pardon me, we've done so much with that we kind of avoid it too much now.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely a thing.
It's the best part of TMNT, of the 07 like movie. They do a wonderful job with that. Yeah, but it's awesome. They do a great job with that.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit in the chat before the show, that movie. Yeah. And I feel like that's like the only good scene is their big confrontation.
Yeah, I think
that movie's kind of boring.
That's fair. I think it's a better movie than that, but it is the best part of that movie, certainly. And so we're focused on that enough with this, that the other two Turtles, I always felt like feel a little bit shafted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, that was something I was surprised with this one, because I remember Michelangelo and Donatello being very interchangeable, and rewatching it, I don't have that, but they definitely don't have as much to do.
Yeah,
and that feels like the big thing you would build out in a sequel. And
they're as close to interchangeable as anybody. The reason they feel that they felt that way a little bit, probably, and I've said that before too, that they have that a little bit, is because while their delivery and sense of humor is a little bit different, they are kind of the comic relief of the four together, and they also pair them off. So we pair off Michelangelo and Leonardo and Raphael as rivals, and then we pair off Michelangelo and Donatello as just like friends hanging out while their other brothers are yelling at each other. And so they just go off and crack jokes together. Mm-hmm. So they're like the pair that goes and gets in trouble, you know.
Yeah, but one of them is going while they're joking, so
yeah,
he's the smart one.
Yeah, and then the other one is like pork rind.
Yeah, exactly. The other one's saying ninja kick the damn rabbit, while the other one's going, war and peace.
Oh, I'm glad Chewbacca's Lover brought this up, because I meant to mention this, because it's funny. $2 Super Chat, he says, the movie gave Raph his Brooklyn accent, 1987, and explain to me why he has a thick New York accent when none of the others do. And I want to think it's because he's so angsty and looking for his own personality, his own place in the world, that he forces it. And that's the thing teenagers will do.
Well, I think it's because he's the one that's out the most, because there's the whole thing about how
I like that theory, that he's developed it because he's around people.
Well, yeah, because there's that whole thing about like, oh yeah, he just always leaves to blow off steam, and he like goes out to see the movie. Like he goes out to the movies.
I'm going to a movie.
I'm walking it.
Is that okay with you?
You know what I want to see is Raphael versus Jigsaw from Warzone.
Oh my god, that would be too much of that fake accent. I couldn't even handle it.
It would be awesome.
We should have referenced Raphael when we watched that movie. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I forgot that he had that. So
with the pop culture reference thing, I think they're really thoughtful about that stuff when they go there. Like it's so few and far between.
But the Critters thing is fun.
Well, I was about to mention that, yeah, and that is a more recent thing. That's from just a few years before this, where he's like, where do they come up with this stuff? That's the kind of, especially if it's few and far between, that's the kind of like self-reverential thing, like kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of moment that feels classy in a thing like this before it feels too cool for school or something, where we have to keep pointing out how ridiculous the whole thing is. Like, you get one, and that's a good way to do it.
Well, I just like it too because obviously there's that meta thing, but I like it on the level of just uh, this mutant turtle that lives in the sewers is like, I'm gonna go watch a movie, and it's about like these little creatures and how evil they are, and he's like just pissed off even more about that. And he's like, yeah, this is just how they see us.
That's a good point. And then when you see the picture of the critter, the animatronics look kind of close.
Yeah.
You can see Raphael in that scene as almost like an evolution of what's on this poster. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go ahead and read tweet length reviews, and if you're watching live right now and you'd like to put in a tweet length review, feel free and we'll read it for you on air. These are from our $5 and above patrons, and I'm going to refresh this and see if we've gotten any more as we're talking here. We probably only have a couple. Unfortunately, I forgot to put out a post about this until today, so apologies there. We got a couple on Patreon. Stone Gasman says the full body turtle suits from Jim Henson's workshop are fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Oh, sorry. I'll let you finish just slurping.
Oh, sorry. I hit the bottom.
You're fine. The full-body turtle suits from Jim Henson's workshop are fantastic. The film, while muddy-looking and animated series silly at times, still captures much of the original comic. No Turtles film has ever been held to measure up 4 out of 5. I certainly agree with that. Chewbacca's Lover, this and the 2003 show are my favorite Ninja Turtles. They are what I grew up with. Great movie. Shame both sequels aren't good. 4 out of 5.
Which is interesting because I've heard that show is like the next closest thing to Mirage.
Oh, it is, yeah. And I mean, it pulls a lot of its stories directly from the comics, and it certainly reinvents some things. But the sorry, I'm trying to get somewhere on Discord here.
Okay.
Apologies.
Like their Shredder's very different.
But really cool. And so I just had this thought when he brought up '03. What's interesting is the '03 show was again, I've talked about this before, but the consultant of the two of them there was Laird, and it really feels like Laird's Ninja Turtles. And then you go to the 2012 show, and Eastman did it, and it feels a lot more like the sensibilities that he brought to it. I would argue that the movie feels very much like a 50-50 split. I couldn't say it's more Eastman or more Laird. Like I think it very much is, and they were still working together at that time.
I was gonna say that's probably the last we'll ever see of that, where you can feel both of their influence.
Yeah, because they were consulted together. They had meetings with Baron in Northampton. Like, he went out to see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool.
Tom. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say I didn't know their stuff well enough to know like who brought what. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, in their art, you can't tell where one starts and one finishes. But when they start doing more things separately, you start to get a sense of what their sensibilities are. And then if you just listening to them in interviews and stuff, you can kind of tell like which things each of them is more into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
If you can ever get your hands on the annotated issues that they did, I can't remember if it was just Eastman or if it was both of them. No, I think there's notes from both of them. I forget. But there's issues from the early run of Mirage. They went up through a certain issue. I can't remember how many they did. And there's they like almost review themselves. They go back and not really reviewing themselves, but they go back and they give you like anecdotes from the time, and they tell you as much as they can remember about actually working on the issues, and it's really cool.
Yeah, the trade I have has that, but I was reading them at work, so it was like
Yeah.
supervisor read. So I couldn't read a whole page of text. So I'll probably go back and read those.
It's really educational. You find yourself wishing you had that for everything with stuff. Anyway, here is a tweet length review from Tom. He says, while it's got laughable visuals, it's... How much of it is laughable? It's stunning for a 90s movie and a cornerstone for most kids of the 80s and 90s. And he rates it a superhero. And Doolittle says a really fun take on the original Mirage comics. And Josh has just been going through those. Or no, he's been going through... He's been going through IDW, but I know he's read some of that stuff too.
He's been like back and forth going through Mirage and IDW, I think.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it would be weird to read it like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a strange cat, that guy.
Yeah, because he's bound to read an IDW thing before he reads the thing that inspired it.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, Austin, go ahead and give us your rating, man.
I will give this movie a hero. I think it's quite good.
I've probably been rating too many things lately at superhero, and with the old Rewind scale rating scale, I started at a 2.5, which admittedly was too low, and I was really hung up on the idea that the Turtles need to beat Splinter and save the day because their name is, or beat Shredder and save the day because their name is in the title, and I've changed my tune on that a little bit. Although I
came into this thinking I was going to have to argue against that. That was like a big thing all day. I'm like, okay.
No, the last time I talked about this, I've gone back on that pretty hard. If you go back and listen to the last written review I did, I have changed my tune on that.
Okay.
But I do still think that the Turtles should have saved Splinter, and that they feel too supporting in their own movie in the third act. I don't think you can argue with that. I mean, they're fighting on the street, and they go fight Shredder, and all the important stuff is done by other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's
fair.
That's still a little bit of a problem. But it's not. But it's not necessarily. It's not really a problem that they don't beat the.
I mean,
the
I
Shredder
think
now. I don't
because
think
we're mainly focused on them fighting, it doesn't feel like that. I feel like it's kind of like that Iron Man thing where it's Pepper that kills Stain.
When you're really starting to think about it, yeah.
Yeah, but you're watching Iron Man fight through the climax. You're not really thinking about how.
But at least Iron Man is yeah, but that's different because Iron Man is still fighting the main antagonist. Like the Turtles are just
Well, then they fight Shredder at the end.
Yeah, but they don't win.
Neither does Iron Man, though. That's what I'm saying. It's the same thing as that.
I guess. Yeah, that's fair. But like,
and Iron Man doesn't get to beat any of his villains in his trilogy.
Is that true? I never really thought about that.
Because Pepper kills the main villain in 1 and 3, and then in 2, there's like that weird crossing the streams thing, and then I think the bad guy like blows himself up.
But I still feel like it's a little bit different because the Turtles don't really get any hits off on Shredder. Like they don't come close. They completely get their asses handed to them.
And so does Iron Man.
No, it's more back and forth.
But it's mostly like him getting his ass kicked, and that's why he has to get Pepper to do the thing.
Yeah, well, that's a place where it didn't feel like that to me as much when I was watching it. I wasn't sitting there like, oh wow, he's just completely getting his ass kicked. He's not getting any hits off. Like, well, anyway, now we're just arguing about fights. Can we not do that?
Well, and I think just for me, I think it needs to be Splinter that beats Shredder at the end. So, like, it doesn't bother me. But I also do need the Turtles to save Splinter. That is a mistake.
Yeah, well, because then you could drive home maybe the point that they are still teenagers and they're not really ready to lose him.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
because what it feels like it is before is you've gone through your training and you're gonna have to learn to live without me, and then they don't have to do that.
When it knocks home that.
So it should be they're not ready yet. They're not really mature. We're watching them mature. But like the Leonardo and Raphael that have just now started to get over their really petty differences. Yeah, they're not ready to live without Splinter yet. They're getting there.
Mhm.
But as soon as he left, the whole team falls apart.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. No, and I think it would really drive home the fact that you know, Splinter beat Shredder entirely to the point where his the people like his family that he trained beats the family that Shredder trained,
Yeah.
and saves him. And then obviously Splinter beats Shredder.
Yeah, because they're the adults in the room.
Hmm. Exactly.
And they're the mentors that have either successfully parented or ruined their children.
Hmm.
And so they should fight at the end. I mean, it's like,
Well, it's their rivalry. Like the Turtles have no real connection to the Shredder.
yeah, and they've only just now revealed, figured out that that's who that is.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Bob the Hun. See, I was gonna say this, but I dropped it. But Bob the Hun says Pepper just executes Tony's plan. That's the other big difference with it, is like Tony does come up with that,
Hmm.
and the turtles don't do anything with Shredder.
I mean, yeah, I mean they're
And that's
fighting.
the other reason that I never thought of that watching Iron Man is
Hmm.
he calls Pepper up and is like, I need you to do this thing. So
Hmm.
he's at least being proactive, and it's still his idea. She wouldn't have done anything to beat the bad guy without him doing that.
Hmm. No, that's fair.
So it's different.
Whatever helps you sleep at night.
I'm gonna give. I'm gonna go to a superhero place with this now. I don't think I can help myself.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to argue with me.
And I stand by it. I don't know if I'm being critical enough, but
Hmm. I mean, I also think uh, you just like this movie more than I do, and you're a Turtles fan, and I'm not. So like
yeah, well,
that makes
like
sense.
it's hard to find that balance because to some degree I want to look at it like within its own franchise, and
Hmm.
like for
And it's
Ninja Turtle as a
head and
Ninja Turtles
shoulders.
thing, I'm not gonna necessarily rate, say, a Power Rangers movie in the same way, or like compared to the same things exactly as I would like a Batman movie.
Hmm.
Because if you do that, then they're all like a point 0.5 or a 1. Like they're not.
Yeah, and
It's
I
not
mean,
great
in our
stories.
ranking of what we've done so far, this is third. So like that's pretty high.
Yeah, which is kind of odd to only go hero. You're middle of the road, but you're 3 of 8.
Oh, wait a minute. See, I'm so lost on what the thing is. I was thinking I was giving it a 4 out of 5. Uh,
Yeah, no, you went to 3. You went to the middle.
oh no, because it's Legend is top.
Legend is top.
That's what I've lost. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's superhero. So yeah, we're on the
superhero.
same boat
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I was really surprised when you did that. I was like, oh, middle of the road.
then. No, I'm lost on a scale.
No,
This
sorry
is the
about that.
first time I haven't asked you what the scale is.
I've messed it up. I should have just left it
And I got it wrong.
at the 4 point scale, but we've done this long now. I'm gonna keep it.
That's okay.
But yeah,
Next, ask.
especially because it's one of the best, again, relative to its own franchise. It's one of the best adaptations from comics to screen. So like,
Absolutely.
I don't feel like I could go any lower than that.
Hmm. No,
I
and
feel like with this
that's where
scale,
I thought I was.
I feel like with this scale, I'm thinking more about adaptation, and I'm looking at these things more as like superhero and comic book movies than I am like looking at them as just stories. You know what I mean? Like the story, but relative to superhero and comic book things. And
Hmm.
so I may be being a little bit easier and lighter on things than I used to be, but
No, I mean,
I'm finding this. My point is, I'm finding this to be a different exercise
yeah,
than writing about them.
yeah, and that's fair. I mean, I think this is both a good movie and a good adaptation.
Yeah, but it's
So it
probably
finds that balance.
yeah, and that's the distinction. Is it's a good movie. It's a really good adaptation.
Hmm. Yeah, because I don't think you need the comics uh, to have that, like, oh, well, they adapted it really well to get that this movie works.
Yeah, no, I don't either. But if you just see this movie, you'll get some of like entirely the spirit of the comics and some of what people loved about that. So then if you went and looked at the comics, you'd be kind of at home. And especially if you go look at the '03 show. Josh, $5 super chat. He says, I think the 90 Turtles movie is to TMNT what Donner Superman is to Superman. Totally understandable for it to be a superhero. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming at it.
Yeah, no, that's a good call.
Especially in that we've never surpassed it.
Yeah.
We've never made a better Superman movie.
And I
we've
don't
never
think
made a better Turtles movie.
We will never go back to just doing the Mirage thing in a movie, I don't think.
No, and I want to see it pushed farther.
Mm-hmm. It will always just be go back to the 80s cartoon because it's the big thing everyone remembers.
Well, what I want is Mirage tone with as much of the characters and iconography as you want to use from everything else. You know, and that's what I loved about the IDW series is you get darker, more sophisticated Ninja Turtles, but I also get Krang, I also get my Technodrome, I get all that stuff. And it's just like what I always wanted for Power Rangers. There's no reason that you can't have all the cool, fun toys and give them some dimension.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I don't need another great Ninja Turtles thing because I have this, and I'm starting to read Mirage, which is probably going to be my definitive thing. So it's like I feel like I have everything I need from this franchise, and I don't need any more. But I can understand, as more of a fan, your place, because obviously I have that with other things.
Yeah, well, and I got really invested in IDW, and like that's, I dropped off eventually when I didn't think it was as good when Waltz left, but like that's like 200 issues of comics.
Yeah, and I might check that out at
like
some
point. A really really complex world building, and it would be nice to see. I'm just saying, if we have to have adaptation, it would be nice to go to that, especially for like another cartoon series. But I'm with you. I don't need more. It's just when they do it and they don't go to that, it's a little disappointing because it's right there.
Yeah. And it's hard to say because I feel like, at least to some degree, the sun is kind of already set on Ninja Turtles in terms of its overall popularity.
Oh, no, absolutely.
So it's like, will we ever really recapture that in a movie or a show? I don't know. But you also maybe could have said that before the 2012 show. And then obviously that was hugely popular.
Yeah, 6 seasons. And the toys sold really well.
Beloved, yeah.
Bob the Hun, Shredder cuts off Splinter's ear, which is not in most adaptations. And this came up with that too. Those are really the two big things that this movie came up with, is that and the recruiting kids angle with the Foot Clan.
Yeah, and I think both are pretty good additions.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching, whether you're watching live or later on. I want to say thanks, as always, to all of our patrons, especially our Patreon producers. And I'm going to read through those names very dramatically here in just a moment. But first, let me reveal what we're going to be doing next time. In 2 weeks... I say 2 weeks. I think it's going to be more like 3 unless we put it on a different day that week, because I'm out of town in 2 weeks. No. I'm sorry, I forgot about this. I'm not leaving until Saturday.
I was going to say, you told me you were a Good Friday.
No, I forgot about
liar.
that. I'm such a liar.
As Galdo would say, liar.
I just forgot what I was doing that weekend. Anyway, so... in 2 weeks, we're going to tackle speaking of more 90s stuff, it's going to look like we planned this. We're going to be doing the 1994 Shadow movie, which I have not watched in a very long time.
And I've never seen.
That was a super early rewind. So it'll be interesting to see what you think of that, Austin. I'm not sure where you'll land on it.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about it. All I know is that my mom has the the novelization.
It's so weird.
All right. I had to sneeze for like the last 2 minutes. It was like slowly building. So like trying to make a point while at the same time being like...
You looked really distracted by something.
Yeah, it was because I could feel it coming. And I was trying to get my point out before that happened.
You almost had it.
I almost did. I almost got there. But like Rocky, oh wait, no, not like Rocky, because he did go the distance. What am I talking about? Anyways, she had the novelization, and I just remember seeing that image, like the cover where it's like the mask where he's got the um, bandage over his face, whatever it's called, bandana.
Yeah, I could
God, I
see.
sneezed my brain out.
I could really see you going either way with that.
Mhm.
You might
Yeah,
love that movie. I'm not sure.
that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping it's more Darkman and less Masters of the Universe.
I would certainly say that it's closer to Darkman.
Mm.
It's not lame. So once again, thanks to everybody. Appreciate our patrons, and thank you guys who left super chats tonight. Let me now, because it's a perk, read down very dramatically our Patreon producer names. Thanks very much to One Reply, Bill Mills, Chewbacca's Lover, Dr. Hello, Elliot Slater, Hayden Spring, Joe Turner, Joe Gira, Matt Bat 68, Michael Martin, Stone Gasman, Super Billy, Adam March, Damon Begay, Hot Soup, Jacob Schneider, Jonathan Campbell, Justin Hayes, Kareem Roberts, Matthew Brody, Michael Austin Gulick, Miguel Rodriguez, The Day Ghost. That's you. Unknown Passenger, Wendell Jones. And, do you want to say it this time?
Zach.
You know who's at the end. Zach. There it is.
Guy with no last name.
Well done. He's got no last name. All right, folks. Thanks a bunch for being
Zach?
here. Chewbacca's Lover said, please be Ultimate Avengers. We'll make sure and do that not too long from now, because I announced it and then I had to change it. And that is also on a short list because of a request. So we'll try to do that in a couple shows.
Nice.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. And Austin, it was a lot of fun watching this one with you, man.
Yeah, it blew by.
It sure did. Yeah, we got to about half an hour, and I went, "Crap! We're not getting anything out. Like, we're not gonna say anything about this movie."
No, even rewatching it last night, there was a point where I went, "Oh, it's like half over." What?
Yeah, it's really economical. Remember when we used to make movies like that? I mean, it's got that in common with Ghostbusters.
Remember when we used to make movies?
Remember that? We're just old men. Get off our lawn.
I'm not even that old.
Tom says I skipped his name, but I didn't see it in there. So, Tom, I didn't skip your name. It's not here anymore.
Uh-oh, Tom, did you have...
He might have gotten kicked off like several people did last month with a weird Patreon glitch that's been happening to everybody. But yeah, your name's not in here right now, so that's why your name didn't get said.
Yeah, that happened to me at one point. I had to make a whole new account. It was really annoying.
Yeah.